Welcome to the GrowCast Show, episode 81. Here with me today are Kai and Nadia from Smart Move Property. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Here. Today, we are talking about buying houses and condos in Singapore. So my first question will be, what is the number one financial mistake HDB buyers make when buying their new launch condo?
I would say that very often people overestimate their affordability, right? So they get very excited about what they can afford for their new launch condo, and they try to max out what they can loan from the banks. And that's great because, obviously the bigger you buy, the better profits you make and things like that. But it's also really important to be careful because the expenses are going to be a bit more when you own a condo. Like even maintenance fees alone are going to be more when you own a condo versus an HDB. And you got to be prepared. This is a loan for 20, 30 years. So you got to be prepared for potentially interest rate hikes that can happen. So the message is be conservative, right? You don't have to go to your max. Be conservative because we've seen too many people make that kind of mistake.
How do buyers know if they should buy a resale condo or a new launch condo?
I think end of the day, there's no one size fits all. It's actually subjective to each individual priorities and needs in their different phases of life. Whereas some Singaporeans in today's market, they find themselves like being priced out. Therefore, a lot of them are looking at resale market right now because resale market actually offers a lot of flexibility in terms of where they stay, how big of a size, and finding a budget that can match theirs. For new launches, of course, it gives a different perspective and a whole array of benefits. Because new launches, even though it's at a different price point, increase in land prices, they often find it hard to afford for most buyers because in today's market, everything just went up, including resale market. Whereas for new launches, they actually offers a whole different perspective and benefits. It's not for everyone, but if you're in the game of trying to build your net worth and to build your assets, then that's something that you should consider, but it's not a must for everyone. So I will always highly encourage all viewers out there or even potential buyers out there, please do seek advice from professional people like your own respective representative. If you do require further advice on these matters, I think it's best that you actually seek professional advice from your representatives or even look us up, Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So Nadia, now with the rising interest rates, is it a very bad time for HDB buyers to make a move to private property?
Rising, lowering. Who can really guess this, right? 1 minute the Feds are saying it's going to hold, and then they say today that it's going down again. If you're really playing this game, then you are trying to time the market, and that is always super dangerous. You want to look at the big picture, which always shows that property trends upwards in general in Singapore. It has always trended upwards. There might be troughs here and there, but it's always trended upwards. So what's more important as a question? The more important question is, can you afford to make the move now? Are you financially ready? And if you are, then that's the smarter question to ask yourself and the smarter timing to time yourself at. It's better than waiting for the right time to buy or sell.
That's a great answer. Kai, what financial traps should HDB upgraders have a look out for when buying a new launch?
To answer that question, I think it's always best to talk to your banker and work out your loan package. What is the amount that you're eligible for? But always do note that whatever amount that you're eligible for is not necessarily how much you should take, because that means you are not overstretching yourself. And in today's market, with everything's increasing on the rise, it's best that we do not stretch ourselves thin, and which most cases people overestimated what they could actually borrow. Yeah, even though in Singapore, it's a good thing that we have a lot of policies are in place by MAS regulations to actually ensure that us Singaporeans, we don't over leverage on how much we could actually borrow. But we should do our due diligence to ensure that we don't overstretch. Yeah.
How do developers price new launch condos, and when is the best time to buy?
So one thing you have to understand is that when developers price condos, almost always it is staged. Okay, so the beginning stage is always the lowest PSF. Why? Because they have to meet a certain percentage of sales before they can move on in terms of the loans that they require for acquiring the land, for building the buildings and things like that. So it's always going to be staged as low as possible. The most important question is, are the project fundamentals right? If you have checked that the project fundamentals are right, who's the developer? What is going to be the transformation around the area? Is it well connected? If these fundamentals are right, then get in as early as possible as you can. If you've missed the launch, then then whatever the next phase is, the earlier the better. Don't wait for TOP.
Kai, what is the risk of buying a new launch condo in a phase of oversupply?
Again, we have to ask ourselves what's the definition of oversupply. If at one moment we are seeing a surge of units coming out in one area, does it mean really oversupply? Or that area has not been having any new developments for the past 8 to 12 years? Is that oversupply? So these kind of the questions are the things that we need to look back and reinterpret the entire situation before jumping into saying that the bandwagon or saying that the area now we are having an oversupply because there's 1,000 over units coming up at one point of time. That being said, we also have to look at the transformation of the area. Is it aligned with the government transformation plans? Because that would mean that future buyers would actually reap benefits from this entire enhancement programs from the government as well. So there are a lot of many factors considering if you are looking into this supply and demand issue. I mean, we are more than happy to actually elaborate further on this matter. Yeah.
Nadia, what should HDB upgraders have a look out for to make sure they have a good profit when they exit?
Wow, this question is not so easy to answer because there can be up to 6 or 7 factors that you really have to study, not just look at, but really study to make sure you're selecting the right condo. So it's a myth that all new launch condos will make you money, right? That being said, I think 3 factors really stand out to me right now. First of all is connectivity. Predominantly MRT and bus connectivity, but also how near it is to the highways, right? And then you have schools. Schools is a huge factor in Singapore. People will rent just to be near sought after schools. Amenities also help. So your supermarkets, your hospitals and things like that nearby, they do help to enhance the profitability. They don't guarantee, but they can enhance. And finally, always have a look at the URA master plan. What is the government's plans for the area? Is there going to be business hubs nearby? Will that bring in renters, potential buyers in the future, investors? So that can also be a strong indication.
How do you spot if a new launch is overpriced before you buy?
That's a very good question. I think that is a very common question that a lot of us actually asking us. We have to actually look into many areas before deciding whether is it overpriced or not. We have to look into district areas because district is an overview of the entire Singapore, right? District area, estate area, and the surrounding projects. How much are they being priced? Including the upcoming land sales actually are being factored in as well. So all these are the nitty-gritty stuff that actually we will dive deep into to actually to determine whether the price is it a fair amount. At what price you enter, it will determine the buyer's exit strategy in the future. Yeah.
Should HDB upgraders time the market, or is it all about personal financial readiness?
Timing the market. I don't know. Do you have a crystal ball?
I don't, sadly. Do you?
I don't. We don't either. Nobody does. So it's never wise to time the market. We would never advise that to anyone. Financial readiness is number one. Because if you're financially ready, you don't take action because you want to time the market, you could end up paying more. You don't know that you could end up paying more. And interest rates and, other things that bring prices up and down, they fluctuate anyway. In general, the trend always goes upwards. So don't pretend you have a crystal ball.
What if HDB upgraders fail to sell their flat before they want to buy their new condo?
The risky part of not being able to time correctly, I think it may appear to be very simple, timing the timeline, but a lot of them actually fail to do so. That would actually having implications like paying ABSD, additional buyer stamp duty. If they were to not able to sell their HDB in time, they will find themselves in situations whereby they have to rent a place temporarily, a short-term lease, which is again harder to find and extra cost for the buyer as well. And thirdly, the down payment for their new launch or the new condo that they're buying, they are unable to pay the down payment because they are relying on the sales proceeds coming from the sale of the HDB. That will be some of the considerations they will have when it comes to timing the timeline or even selling their place.
What is better for HDB upgraders, to sell their flat or to keep it for rental income?
Which is better is going to depend on your particular scenario. So it's very hard to give a blanket answer for this one. I just have to highlight though that if you keep your HDB after it's reached its 5-year MOP and you decide to keep your HDB and buy a private property, there will be additional costs. So you got to figure out whether this is worth it. There'll be ABSD to pay because now you can't decouple your HDB anymore, right? So there'll be ABSD. Your LTV, your loan to value for your next property will be a lot lower because it'll be considered your second property. So it needs to match your financial and your investment goals. If this does match your long-term goal, then great, it might be a good solution. But most people probably find it more worth it to unlock the equity in their HDB and move on to a bigger private property because it could give them more returns in the end, possibly.
Why do some HDB upgraders regret moving into a new launch condo?
I think it's very similar to having a new launch of an iPhone. New model just popped up and then, hey, I want to get the new stuff. It's that impulsiveness sometimes. Something new comes up, you get very excited. But end of the day, I think we have to actually look back into our financial situation, whether are you ready for it? Is it aligned with your family goals and needs at that point of time when you're looking to purchase a new property? As we all know that new houses are not bigger in size, they are bigger in price, but of course the potential is also a lot bigger if you choose the right property.
How does additional buyer stamp duty affect new buyers and how can they make a move around it?
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to figure out a way to work around ABSD, but I'll just have to be straightforward here. The best way is sell your HDB, then buy your new launch or your resale, whatever private property. Because whether you're planning to sell your HDB afterwards or not, you still have to pay your ABSD upfront. So you got to have that cash on hand. It's almost impossible to work around it. And I'm pretty sure it's designed that way.
What are the biggest misconceptions about upgrading from HDB to private property?
The biggest misconception is that moving the HDB to a condo is always an upgrade. But the definition of upgrade for every individual is different from individual to individual. You have a lot of space in HDB, which condo doesn't provide at the same price, right? And in fact, some HDB houses, today, are actually generating more proceeds than condos are generating. But end of the day, we need to know what is your end goal, what is the purpose of moving from HDB to condo. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages for sure.
How do you evaluate a new launch project beyond the glossy brochures and show flats?
Yeah, the show flats can be pretty impressive and can really influence you to want to take action quickly, which is great, but also do some background checks. Like I think just the developer name itself can give you a big clue as to the quality, the type of design materials that they use. You want to be confident of that, right? And then of course the location, where is it placed? Is this going to fit into your lifestyle? Is there a good exit plan, when it comes to the location and things like that? And I think one thing that people sometimes forget to check is the maintenance fees. I know it sounds like a small thing, but it can be such a surprise sometimes. So do check that as well.
Kai, why do some properties increase in value more than others, even in the same area?
It boils down to the attributes of the development in the particular area. So let's say if you were looking in an area saturated with freehold and you're buying into leasehold, and that will put you in a very disadvantageous situation. But again, in some areas, leasehold actually outperforms the freehold as well. So it depends on the area they're looking at, the locality, and the profile of the residents staying in that particular development.
Nadia, how can buyers identify hidden growth areas before the prices shoot up?
One of the biggest clues will be the URA master plan. Definitely, it's going to tell you it's a very long-term plan. So it'll give you clues as to which areas are up and coming in terms of development. Up and coming meaning transport hubs are being created, jobs are being created, and jobs equals to demand. Demand can drive prices up, of course. Another clue is land bids, right? When you have multiple developers bidding on a single piece of land somewhere, which recently just happened as well, you know that something's going to happen in that area. That means the area is in demand, right? So that's going to be a strong indication as well.
Kai, what are the biggest myths when it comes to capital appreciation that most people get wrong?
The biggest myth that we always witness on ground is that people are always saying that these projects are very profitable. There's so many profitable transactions. Is that the best property to purchase? It's not always the truth, because if you look into the entire statistics of that development, sometimes we can find these developments actually are stagnating, which in turn is actually eroding your profits. So if you're in the sense that, let's say 10 years later of that project you bought into is already making money, but if you're sitting on it and not doing anything, you're just basically resting on the same amount for the longer time frame. The greatest myth is freehold is always better than leasehold. Indeed, freehold land is always more valuable than leasehold land, but times have changed. In the past, we have freehold land priced very, very similarly or very closely to leasehold prices. But right now, we are seeing a huge gap in pricing. So therefore, it gives leasehold developments actually an edge in terms of entry price and actually in turn translating to a better exit plan.
How do property investors structure their financing to maximize leverage without overstretching?
Actually, there's a little known thing that people make use of, which is called called pledging and unpledging. You can actually get bigger loans for yourself if you do pledging and unpledging. So it's a lot of detail to go into on a podcast. So I mean, feel free to get in touch with one of us to get to know more about this. But it's a way to increase the possibility of loaning more so that you can achieve that dream home.
Kai, what is the best strategy to negotiate price for a resale property?
Negotiation is an art, right? And it's always often a tug of war of emotions between the seller and buyer. And most of the time that we see negotiations fall through is because of emotional buyer, emotional seller, that they could not bridge the gap. And in order for the gap to be bridged, it requires, regardless whether it's for the seller or for the buyer, they should have a representative that could represent in their interests and offers very objective approach. That will make negotiations fantastic. Balance between emotion and objectiveness. Yeah. Emotion and objectiveness.
Should sellers renovate their flat, or is it best to just leave it as it is?
It's a really delicate balance, really. I mean, in a very hot market, buyers are probably willing to renovate on their own, right? Some renovations that you already have in your home can be so personal that it's probably better to make it more generic so that it appeals to more buyers. So it depends. If we walk into your home and we see that it's very specific sort of personalized renovation, we might advise you to change it up a bit to make it more generic for the buyer. But what's really important is that if there's anything really glaring, like leaks, very old moldy walls, then please repaint. Please do something about it so that the most important thing is, does it appeal, right? It doesn't have to be amazing, but it has to appeal to most buyers.
What are subtle red flags in property listings that most buyers overlook?
Buyers often go into the open market looking for fire sale properties or the cheapest property. It's an innate thing, right? It's an innate thing that when buyers go to shop, they will look for the best deals out there. Best deals to mean that it's the lowest in pricing and it's something that they like and they could see themselves staying in it, fantastic for them. But that's not always the case. When they look for a property, they should always look out for how long has the property listing has been around, what is the concern of the buyers if they are not taking up this particular development they're looking at, or even at what pricing is a fair pricing to buy into this kind of property. Should the property that they're looking at has been on the market for a longest time and they think that I really love to buy this place, I want to move in this place with my family, but how to mitigate my risk if I were to buy something like that?
Why do some listings stay in the market for ages and others are sold very quickly?
The first answer that comes to mind is it's overpriced, right? I think most people say, okay, it's overpriced, that's why it's not selling. But to be very honest with you, what we've seen is that sometimes listings stay on the market for a long time because of seller motivation, or rather lack of motivation. So they might have received offers within fair price. They might have received offers that are even close to what they are asking for. But because the seller doesn't have enough motivation to sell, they're just testing the market. Let's see what I can fetch in price. It doesn't get sold. So keep a lookout for those.
What's the real reason why developers keep rising prices in new launches, and should buyers wait or just buy early?
So for new launches, there are actually 3 stages, stage 1 to 3. Stage 1 being at the lowest pricing and followed by 3 is being the highest, right? But to answer the question, should yours still enter at stage 2 or 3? It all depends on at that prevailing market at a point of time. Is it the pricing, does it still make sense? Because for some developments, even at stage 2 or 3, it offers extremely good value despite the pricing. So that would need a whole different assessment, right? And why developers do that, the staging, is because of the demand. If there's pent-up demand and developers have witnessed a very high level of acceptance in the market, they will eventually raise price up because this is business, right? And that's a sales target they have met.
What mistakes do buyers make when choosing a unit in a high-density condo project?
A lot of buyers are hyper-focused on PSF. And then they forget things like, in a high density condo, privacy matters because you're exposed left, right, and center, right? So you want to make sure your distance between the buildings, how far should it be? What is an acceptable distance? Where's your stack facing? How many lifts are there in your block? So, you won't be waiting forever. Usually for new developments, developers have taken care of these things, but it's always good to look out for them. And then also, noise exposure from the pools and the facilities and things like that. You want to be, unless you love it, you want to be probably place yourself on a higher floor if you're directly facing the pool, but not too high that you can't see the pool. So a lot of things go into play when choosing the actual unit and the stack rather than just going with the lowest PSF.
Kai, how do you identify if an en bloc potential is real or just industry speculation?
It's challenging to actually pinpoint which development will actually go into en bloc, right? Or definitely go into en bloc. That because there are various developments that are aged, right, of a certain age, and they have this high possibility or high probability of going to en bloc. But that being said, if you were to buy a development just solely of en bloc potential, we would strongly discourage, because that will put you in the situation that you are just hoping and gambling the amount of money that you put into this investment property. Because older properties tend to come with a higher maintenance cost and renovation costs and all that. We don't really advise going into a development just because of en bloc potential. Yeah.
What's the difference between perceived value and actual value when it comes to property pricing?
Perceived value is really the buyer's point of view, right? They see value in the property because it's so personal, right? It's emotional, right? They perceive that, this will definitely grow because I love it. Actual value is facts, right? And that's where we bring that to the table, because emotion is something our buyers already bring to the table. We don't have to ask for it. We bring facts to the table and we bring the actual value analysis, where of course we take a look at the market, macro as well as micro. I think many people focus on recent transactions and things like that, but the bigger picture also matters in the macro level. Yeah.
How do bank valuations sometimes come in lower than expected, and how can buyers prepare for that?
I'll answer the second part first. You can prepare for it by being conservative, okay, about your loans and your the loan that you take up. But why do bank valuations sometimes don't match? It's because even if the area transactions support a certain pricing, the banks may not match it because they see a certain risk in either the area or the project or the profile of buyers that tend to buy this type of projects. So they may not always match, because the bank valuation is not about transaction data. You can see that for yourself. The bank valuation is about managing the bank's risk. So it's a total separate issue.
What is the one question every buyer should ask before accepting an option to purchase?
Yeah. Upon accepting the OTP, you are paying your 1%. Typically, it's 1%. It can be more, but typically 1%. You're already paying that. You don't want to wait until you exercise to ask a legal professional to review this document, right? Of course, you're going to get your conveyancing lawyer to take care of it. But before you even present your 1% check, you need to have this document, just have a pair of legal eyes go through it so that you know that everything is standard. Yeah, that's the most important thing I would suggest.
Okay, so last question. How will Singapore's upcoming infrastructure projects like new MRT lines impact property prices in the next 5 to 10 years?
Expanding transport networks are actually in the government plans to actually support growing population. And the moment when government announced a certain MRT in certain areas, price has already been factored in, or premium has already been factored in into those upcoming developments. That being said, the moment when the MRT has come into completion, there'll be another premium. And that is always aligned with the upcoming transformation happening in the estate area. So do always look out for government plans. Even take action before the government plan has been announced in the particular estate area. To find out more, reach out to us, and then we were more than happy to actually follow you through.
Thank you so much, Nadia and Kai, for your valuable knowledge. And
you're welcome.
How can they find you? How can they contact you?
Follow our Instagram account. Or the easiest way is just follow us on our social media down below. And I think this video will probably also display our WhatsApp QR codes. So just take a snap and reach out to us anytime.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That was it for episode number 81, and I will see you in the next GrowCast Show episode.